Welcome to Silicon Valley Asian Business Talk.
So my name is Melvin, and I run a startup that focuses on helping founders to operate their companies. So essentially, we serve as an operations manager to take care of all the compliance, their financial operations like accounting and bookkeeping, as well as the people operations like payroll, recruiting. The goal is to essentially simplify the process of running a company for the founder so that they can save time, keep their focus on the really strategic aspect, and leave all the operational work to our platform. So we built a business in Singapore, and we're now in the US. So the company in Singapore is called Starboard, but the product we're going to launch in the US, or we're in the process of launching with some early customers already, is called Stellar.
Discussion topic: How should young startups deal with competition?
Based upon your experience, how did you deal with, again, talking about after you found the base, the product market fit, we're talking about further grow, further scale up. How do you deal with adjusting your product direction or based upon the customer needs or understanding or even anticipating needs? Let me call that following customer versus responding to competitors' threats.
Yeah.
In your real practice, what's your wisdom on this kind of issue, these two drivers, or you pay more attention to customers, less attention to competitors, or pay attention to competitors under these situations? Can you share some of your practice or wisdom on that?
The question is, whether do I focus on what the competitors are doing, or
yes, that's true. Following customer versus responding to competitors' threats or moves.
Yeah.
To influence your new product decision or innovation direction, things like that.
Yeah. Well, if I had to answer the question a bit more generally, I would say, as we talked about, it's all context. It depends on what stage of the business you're at, right? We're at I would say we're
elaborate. Would you say depend upon the stage?
Yeah.
What do you mean stage? Which stage will tend to?
Well,
elaborate on that point.
Sure. So, for a very young company, it's most likely that most of your bigger competitors, because if you're a young company, you don't really want to consider other companies at an early stage really a competitor, right? You want to compete against those who've been in this for a longer time and much bigger. And bigger companies, by very definition, they're bigger, they've got more resources, they've got more capital, they've got more of everything, more of learnings and everything. So ultimately, I would say that the biggest advantage that a younger company would have is speed, because a younger company is less bogged down by the more complex decision-making process that other companies would have. And the willingness to address something, a customer pain that the bigger companies are not willing to address. So I would say there are some things that it's worth paying attention to. You want to pay attention to what has worked for competitors. You don't want to pay too much attention, because sometimes it can be really scary when you pay very close attention to how much money they've raised, like hundreds of millions of dollars. If you just pay attention to what they've done on the surface, it can be very intimidating. And it's not good for founder psychology to just pay too much attention to that. What's really important is for a founder to manage his or her own personal psychology, right? So not getting caught up with all the FOMO, not getting caught up with everything that the competitor is doing is important. At the same time, very astutely just looking out at what competitors are doing and just learning from the mistakes or learning from the best practices and applying it as quickly and sufficiently as possible. And so I'd say it's a combination of both, right? And then sticking to your gut and saying that, if there's something I'm committed to building, even if competitors don't build it, I'm going to do it anyway, right? So a lot of it has to depend on your personal conviction.
Okay, that's great, because earlier I think you mentioned another very interesting point. I don't know whether there's any kind of nuance that you can share. of, let's say, if you enter a market space, you have two types of competitors. One is the incumbents, the large companies.
Yeah.
The other one is the younger startups like you.
Yeah.
Do you recommend or suggest as entrepreneurs or startup company founding teams to pay different type of attention, or there's any kind of difference when you deal with these two types of competitors?
I would say that at an early stage, I'd say, do a lot of research at the start, like learn as much as start. And especially for founders who just love to jump in and do things, right? I think I identify with that type of founders. I learn by doing. And so I have a preference to just jump in and build while learning about things. And I found that sometimes I wish I had done a bit more reading. I wish I had done a bit more research before I actually jump in, right? Or at least have some member on the team who has really done it, right? But there's no perfect scenario. What I was getting at is, do as much as you can, do as much as you have patience for at the start before jumping in. But the moment you jump in, I would say, just go. Stop worrying about every single move that the competitor is doing. Just do what you want to do as fast as possible. And as we talked about at the very, very start, like there are tons of competitors, right? You can start off thinking, I know exactly what my 5 competitors are doing. And then after a while, you realize, wait a moment, there are 50 competitors in the market actually, and 3 more are being built at that very moment.
Thank you for watching.